Today I'm out in Carmel, California, finally getting my hands on the new 2023 Toyota Sequoia. This is a ground-up redesign for Toyota's rugged three-row SUV. This is closely related not just to the Toyota Tundra, but also the Land Cruiser and the LX600. So if you're looking for Toyota reliability and a lot of off-road ability, that's what this TRD Pro model is all about. Now today I'm going to be taking a look at the TRD Pro and the capstone trim. There are going to be 5 different trim levels of Sequoia. That video is going to come a little bit later. It's been quite some time since the Sequoia has had a complete redesign, and I think Toyota has really done an excellent job with this. You'll notice that the front-end design is not exactly the Toyota Tundra, as a lot of people had assumed. This doesn't have the sort of lamb chop thing going on here on the sides of the grille. The grille actually reminds me shape-wise of what we find in Toyota's crossover lineup, like the RAV4 and the Highlander, but then the headlights are common with the Toyota Tundra. Now, not the entire shell, but the elements on the inside. This is a multi-module LED headlight. We have sequential turn signals below. LED fog lights, those are down here right at the bottom of the bumper. The grille changes depending on the trim level that you get. I'll also be taking a look at the capstone trim, so if you're more interested in that than the TRD Pro model, stay tuned, that is coming up. Right here in the middle, just like we find in the Tundra, we have an LED light bar. That's part of the TRD Pro package there. 360-degree camera system here, radar cruise control sensor right there in the middle. There's still a number of key details that Toyota has not released for the new Sequoia. For instance, I don't know how long it is, but I expect this is going to be right in line with things like the Tahoe. This is still a 3-row vehicle, so if you're looking at the Lexus LX and you'd like to spend a little bit less money but seat 8, then this is the vehicle for you. Also, this is going to be a little bit more off-road capable, all likelihood, because this has a locking rear differential available in the rear, something that we don't see in the LX, but we do find in other world markets in the Land Cruiser. Toyota has been very upfront that this shares a lot of DNA with those other slightly smaller full-size SUVs. The biggest difference is likely going to be wheelbase. Since this is the TRD Pro model, we get some camo textured wheel arches, more rugged tires, rugged BBS forged wheels there, and of course a rock rail down below. The rear end design changes a little bit depending on the trim you're looking at. The TRD Pro gets all the blacked out bits that we see here. They're chrome in the capstone model, with Sequoia really spread out there across the back. This does not have a roll down rear window anymore. Instead, Toyota went in a pretty similar direction to most other full-size SUV makers, with a separately opening rear glass there. And then we have the power hatch below. The power hatch opens to reveal about the same kind of cargo space that you find in a Chevy Tahoe, perhaps a little bit less. Another number that we don't know is exactly what the storage capacity of this is. Going in for a closer look, we find perhaps 11 or 12 inches of depth here between the hatch and the back seats. The third row seats do slide forward and backward. This is a segment exclusive according to Toyota. However, you should know that the second row seats do not slide forward and backward. That's the main reason that the third row seats do. Let's go in for a closer look at the cargo area. You'll see here this multi-height floor. You can put it in 3 different heights right there, and there's a reason. The battery pack for the standard hybrid system, yes, standard hybrid system, lives right there under the third row seats, and this does not have an independent rear suspension. That means that there's a lot of space really consumed height-wise in the vehicle, so the load floor has to be in this position to be level with this area right here under the third row seats. This third row seat is slid all the way forward. This one is all the way back, so you can see how much range we get there. There's a little handle here so you can pull the seat forward and backward from the cargo area. There's also one up front, so you can do that there. And you can do that when the third row seat is up in place right like that. And in that position, the third row seats are pretty level with the second row seats. In many SUVs, the third row seats are actually a little bit lower, so you can see the difference there. In this position, you can unfold that little top on this cargo divider, have a cargo divider that is now level with those third row seats, whether they're slid forward or backward. This still moves around, and it does so that way, if you're in this position, you can then pull the third row seats back, and then again have that level load floor right there. The uppermost cargo position is designed for use with the opening glass. So if I wait for that to close, press this little button right up here, pop the glass, you'll see that we have a second tier of storage that's a little bit more easily accessible from that window. Perhaps the most interesting thing about the Sequoia is that this receives a standard hybrid system, but this is not a hybrid like you've come to think from Toyota. This is the same hybrid system that we also find in the new Tundra. It's a 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6 engine mated with a traditional 10-speed automatic transmission and a pancake electric motor and clutch set between the engine and the transmission. Power comes in at 437 horsepower and torque just under 600 horsepower. This is a very, very powerful setup, and that's what's interesting. This is going to be the most powerful base engine easily in the full-size SUV segment. Now, Toyota has not said how much this Sequoia is going to cost, but I would expect it to be one of the more expensive starting prices as a result of the standard hybrid system. If this hybrid system sounds familiar, you're probably thinking of the one in the F-150 hybrid or the Explorer. The theory of operation in this system is exactly the same, and again, very different from every other Toyota hybrid that has come before, because again, traditional 10-speed automatic. So if you're interested in towing or hauling, this is going to be an excellent choice, even though the hybrid is standard. You'll find up to 9,000 pounds of towing ability in the Sequoia when properly equipped. Now, one disclaimer there, Toyota has not said exactly which options you'll have to select in order to get 9,000 pounds of towing ability. I would expect that to be the rear-wheel drive model, probably with the adaptive rear air suspension. At this point in time, there are no official fuel economy estimates for the Sequoia released just yet. That's another specification Toyota is leaving for later. But based on my experience with the Tundra hybrid out in San Antonio when I was first able to drive that, I would expect this to get somewhere around maybe 20 miles, 21 miles per gallon combined. Obviously, those details are coming soon, as are the official fuel economy numbers for the Tundra hybrid itself. We don't have those numbers just yet. Those are going to be released next week. Now I'm in front of the new capstone trim. As you can see, the grille is quite different. I prefer this amount of cheese grater and the chrome look. Let me know what you think about that down below. The headlights are consistent with the TRD Pro, but no light bar up front. I think in the capstone trim, the design similarities between this and the Tundra, and also, again, Toyota's crossover lineup, is a little bit more instantly noticeable. Moving around to the side and the back, we find some satin chrome and chrome accents, just as you'd expect in the most expensive version of the Sequoia. That's going to be the capstone trim. We also get pretty big wheels and tires in this model. Now out back, the design, especially with the chrome bar right there in the middle, this reminds me an awful lot of the pre-refresh Dodge Durango. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but let me know what you think about that down there. The interior of the front cabin is lifted almost entirely from the Toyota Tundra, including the front seats. This has basically the same front seats that we find in the Tundra TRD Pro. It has a two-way adjustable lumbar support. Four-way lumbar is available in the capstone, as is an extending thigh cushion. We have a manual tilt telescopic steering column here. There's a power one available as well. I have to admit that I was fairly surprised Toyota decided not to have sliding second row seats, because this does leave a lot of potential legroom for the third row sort of on the board and unavailable. This front seat's comfortably adjusted for me at 6 feet tall. I have tons of legroom left here in the second row. This is going to be a very comfortable and very accommodating row. If fully reclined, the bottom part of the seat back does hit me in kind of a strange place in the back, but that's pretty similar in most SUVs. This is going to be available in 7-passenger or 8-passenger configurations. This TRD Pro is the 7-passenger version because we have captain's chairs right here in the second row, leaving a large alley to get back there into the third row. Now it's time to hop into the third row. I would not be surprised if the final dimensions of this third row area end up being a little bit tighter than the previous generation Sequoia. A lot of that has to do with the battery pack that is right here under the third row seats. Because of the location of the battery pack, these seats do not collapse into the floor like we see in the LX600. They do have a power recline mechanism. This is the most upright position. This is the most reclined, but as you can see, there is really not a lot of headroom going on back here. It's not terribly comfortable at 6 feet tall to sit here. And this is kind of a twist, because if I move the seat forward, I get a little bit more headroom, but legroom becomes very, very limited. This second row seat is a little on the too vertical side for me. I did not find this position too comfortable. I really cannot fit back here like this. I do have to push the seat back. So apparently this third row is designed for people with long legs, but not terribly tall torsos, or maybe no head. As we look around the interior, you should know two things. The capstone is A, the most expensive model, and B, I am not allowed to turn this one on, so none of the displays will operate. Height adjustable shoulder belts there. The front seats, again, are borrowed almost entirely out of the current generation Tundra. That also goes for the front doors and most of the dashboard, so lots of soft touch materials in the upper section, especially that very top portion of the door, which is a touch that I like. Over here you can see the ambient lighting in this model. We have capstone lit up there on that real wood trim bar. Lighting below that, soft touch materials at the bottom of the dashboard. One odd thing though, the top of the dashboard over here on the passenger side, that's a hard touch plastic. And then this upper section over here on the driver's side, that's a piece of stitched material. We then have more wood trim, stitched material below. There's going to be a smaller infotainment screen, but only in the base trim, and an option package on the base trim of Sequoia will upgrade you to this large 14-inch screen. This is exactly the same as the one that you see in the Tundra. If you haven't seen that, be sure and check out that video. The other thing that's exactly the same as the Tundra is this large LCD instrument cluster. The steering wheel is Toyota's latest truck wheel, again borrowed out of the Toyota Tundra. Everything, really front seats forward, is directly borrowed from the Tundra. Steering wheel with infotainment buttons over here on the left side, Buttons for the adaptive cruise control over there on the right, Qi wireless charging mat, lots of physical buttons and knobs there. Controls for the load leveling rear air suspension. This is not a four-corner air suspension, it's just rear air suspension. We have the integrated trailer brake controller from the Tundra. That is a really, really nice feature. And it looks like there are also going to be some of the same sort of trailering accessories, trailering electronics packages available here too, with the backup assist system there. We have an electric brake hold there, electric parking brake. Four-wheel drive controls are down here. You can get an electronic rear axle locker in this vehicle, something that we don't find in the LX for some reason in the US. Lots more walnut trim going on there. Also here on this center console, it's padded and it opens to reveal a storage area that's a little bit smaller than some of the American competition. Well, that is my very brief look at the new 2023 Toyota Sequoia. Expect these on dealer lots sometime in calendar year 2022. Because of the commonalities with the Land Cruiser, with the LX, and with the Tundra, it was relatively easy for Toyota to fast-track the Sequoia, and I think they have done an excellent job. I love the look up front, especially in this capstone trim. I was a little bit concerned because I don't really like the look of the new Tundra with that sort of, again, mutton chop thing going there on the side, but this relieves all of my concerns there because this is a little bit more SUV appropriate, and I kind of wonder if this will fit on a Tundra, actually, if someone's interested in swapping these themselves, because the hood is the same as the Tundra's hood, and it looks like the front quarter panels are the same as the Tundra's as well. Again, that makes a lot of sense because Toyota is interested in parts commonality, and that's why this shares so much DNA with the Tundra, with the Land Cruiser, and with the LX 600. But interestingly, if you're interested in a Toyota or Lexus SUV with a lot of creature comforts on the inside and more off-road ability than you might expect, it's going to be this, not the LX 600, which is the luxury Land Cruiser. That doesn't get the locking rear axle, and this looks like it's going to get many of the same sort of off-road ability and off-road programs that we find in that vehicle with the addition of the locking rear. On the other hand, it is going to be bigger than the Land Cruiser or the LX, so that could be a problem on some tighter trails. Again, at this point in time, we have no pricing information on the new Sequoia, but I wouldn't be surprised if this ended up a little bit more expensive than the base entries from the competition because of the standard hybrid system and the amount of standard power we get out of that hybrid system. Over 430 horsepower out of the system, almost 600 pound-feet of torque. That's a very torquey engine. And even though that battery pack will get exhausted up a long mountain pass, it's going to make starts, especially with a heavy trailer, that 9,000 pound trailer, feel very, very confident. And you should notice it also in off-roading situations. Thanks to the design of this hybrid system, it's also pretty smooth, but it doesn't offer the same benefits that we find in Ford's rear-wheel drive hybrid system in the F-150. No massive onboard inverter, for instance. I think that's a bit of a missed opportunity. I would really love to see Toyota offer that in the Tundra and in the Sequoia at some point in the future. Fuel economy is also an open-ended question. I wasn't overly impressed with the fuel economy in the Tundra Hybrid the last time that I drove it out in San Antonio. I'm not sure if this system is going to make too much of an improvement to that fuel economy number. I would expect that this is probably going to be less efficient than the General Motors triplets with the optional diesel engine, but likely more efficient than the new big SUVs that we find from Jeep, and the Wagoneer and the Grand Wagoneer especially. Those are quite thirsty. Honestly, as are most big SUVs. Now, the power level in this is the kicker there, because if you want to get this much power, or I should say close to this much power, because you cannot get this much power in a Tahoe or a Suburban or a Yukon, then you'd have to get their 6.2 liter V8 engine, and it's going to be much thirstier than this engine. Be sure and let me know what you think about all that down there in the comment section below, and let me know what you think of the look of the new Sequoia. Is this a win for Toyota, or do you wish it had looked a little bit more like the Tundra? Let me know down there, and I'll see all of you later. Hopefully, I'll be able to get my hands on this on the road and drive it over the next few months, so be sure and stay tuned for that video as well. I'll see all of you later.